Hello everybody. Let me see if I can get that out of the way. Bob and Julie, Valander, Quindy, Trashorama, Switchblade Smile. Hello. Hope you're all doing well today. I guess as ever, let me know what my fun with sound going weird situation might be today, if there is one. So I hope you've all been having that you all had a good weekend, a good start to your week. I'm gonna just show a few things while we give people a minute to arrive, but I'm gonna try and give you guys some choices over what I do today. But I'll switch over to my combo view and kind of just catch people up on what I've done lately. So this is what we worked on the past 2 streams. Hi, Bryce. I had painted this guy a long time ago, and not fully painted him even, it turned out, which I hadn't realized at the time. So I went through and gave him a critique as I might if he were an entry in the MSP Open, or maybe just someone asks me for a critique. Now, it was actually a little more thorough than that because I had the luxury of time to think, which is sometimes required. Because sometimes even to those of us, no trash, one of the choices is not hand puppets. I'm not adept enough to make or portray hand puppets. But if you see Izzy, ask her about that. So I went through the critique, and then I tried to do some paint updating, editing, depends on how you want to look at it, to address the things that I mentioned in the critique, to show you that it's not as scary as you might think to go into a fully painted miniature and adjust some things. I don't often do that with contest entries. I have sometimes, and those are some of the pictures that I showed last week or that are on the website. But often I like to keep miniatures that I paint in a class or a workshop or things that I do for a contest as sort of, I don't know, markers of my waypoints along the journey. So some of them I change, some of them I don't, which is limiting some of my options for doing this, but I'm going to try to find some more intermediate miniatures to do this with as well. And then 3 weeks ago, I think, I did what can you use the colored metallics for other than painting metal objects? And so I did kind of a silks and satins afternoon. And this was, I didn't grab the other figure before I got here, but there was another figure I worked on. This one turned out a little better. I think I need to work on the highlights, the highlight color that I chose on the other. But so that's something else we've done recently. But today, I got my mega bundle. And I don't know if some of you also, like if a bunch of you already got your mega bundle, then you know what's in it and you don't need me to show you. But if you're interested, I can kind of do an unboxing on stream if you would enjoy that. So that's option 1. And then option 2, which I can do next week. So if choosing option 1 does not preclude option 2 ever happening, is I'm going to grab one of the things out of the box and just paint on it a bit. So it looks like I've got 2 votes for doing a little unboxing. This is actually a cheat box. So since the boxes won't fit under the document camera, I've opened them all. But this was the smallest of the boxes. So I wanted to keep that. Let me see if I can move the light so we get less glare. So I wanted to keep that one out so that you can get a look at what it looks like when you get the box. So if you just bought the swag box, this is what you would be getting. Let's see if I'm zoomed all the way out. We'll do the... So there it is in comparison with the size of my head. The other 2 boxes are much bigger, and then the mega bundle has all of that crammed into one box. So they're out of the box, but I haven't done much more with them, other than I did rinse the one miniature that I was like, if you guys pick any miniature, I'll have it cleaned, but I haven't done any of the prep with files or knives or whatever. So I will also save that until we do it, because I haven't played around much with the Bones USA, and maybe you can do a poll. I was going to pick the, I didn't get the pirate die, so that is the one thing I won't be showing you. When the artist reminded Ron about whether we got mega bundles or not, Reaper had run out of the big resin pirate dice. So we'll get them later, but they didn't come in our packages, because he's like, I can send you a package now that doesn't have that. But So that one I'm not going to show you, but thank you for reminding me about it because I probably wouldn't have mentioned it. And if you can also remind me what box that is in, that would be good. So that's what the box looks like. And it comes with padding as necessary. So I'm actually going to switch to the other view just for a second, because a couple of these are too big to really fit under the camera. I mean, I'll put this one under the camera a little. This is in the Brine Wind box, so I'll do the Brine Wind box first. So this is the Savage Coast, the Landlubber's Guide to the Savage Coast setting that is kind of the setting for ReaperCon this year. So last year we had kind of a focus in just on the city of Brinewind, which is, this is the map. So the city of Brinewind is right there. Oops, I'm trying to stay oriented. And this is kind of the whole region. So places that you can send your explorers and do all kinds of cool things. And yes, as Trash is mentioning, I actually, even though I just opened my box yesterday, I know what's in here because I edited it and did the proofreading. So I know how cool this is because I've read it all. And my understanding is, I thought Ron said this on Reaper Live, I think, that copies of this will go up individually after ReaperCon. Let me just show you more cool easy art. So there are a lot of super cool characters and adventure hooks and like weird plants and funky animals and monsters. There is some very cool stuff in here. Very imaginative. So Joseph Wolf is the writer, and then Ron and Ed created like kind of the overall setting of Avalor that is the Reaper world that this is all set in. And I probably should have brought over the Brinewood one. I don't think they have any of those left still, but I'm hoping that they'll reprint them. And then this is even going to be too big for my other camera. But you get this cool poster map of like a coastal city area that you could use to run a game, a war game or a role-playing game. And it's not super specific, so it could be Brinewind, it could be White Plank, or one of the other cities that is mentioned, cities and towns that are mentioned in the source material. There are a few that the geography is a little more particular maybe, but it would work for a lot of them. So I'll switch back to my other camera. I don't know that I'll get better views of this there. Am I all the way out? Yeah, so I'm all the way out, so that's as much as I can fit on here. But this is very cool. This is one of the scariest opponents is the Slith, because they're somewhat intelligent and very vicious undersea creatures. The Devil Rays, also pretty funky, very imaginative. So, and then this is kind of some back plot with characters and stuff that you could use. So it's pretty well detailed and got a lot of interesting stuff. But what else is here? So there's paint, which if you've been watching my show, you may already know something about the paint. And I'm now reminded I didn't get the swatches. Roll back. So that is this set. The top set is what comes in the Brinewood box, the Dungeon Dwellers Adventure Colors. Let's zoom in a little on those. And they're pretty cool colors. I think, no, that ended up not being the one I used on the colored metallics, but I will keep that because there's more paint. But yes, I'm very excited to get cool colors. And I am really liking the colors that are in here. I've been using them as I've been doing those edits that I've been showing you guys to partly to force myself to learn new colors, but also since then I could assure you that I had not painted the miniature with those colors since it was painted years ago. And you get a cool Reaper water cup, which definitely stay hydrated if you come to ReaperCon, but also stay hydrated if you do other activities and you're not coming. So that's useful. And then each box comes with a random cup, I think. So this one happens to be the Storm Chasers, which is cool because they're the faction I've been supporting. I think last year, yeah, they're the faction that I've been supporting. And probably will continue to support. So that was nice that I got their one, but I'm trying to remember, is it 6? I think there are 6. And then there's some cool little things. I don't know if I grabbed all of them, but I also don't know if these are random or if every box gets the same one. Hi, Kuro Nico. You didn't miss too much. I'm just starting to go through the Brinewind box of the swag boxes for ReaperCon. And then there's a cool Reaper sticker. This is kind of like tiki style art that I would be willing to bet Jason Weeby did that one. I would also be willing to bet that Jason Weeby did this one, though I'm not 100% sure. So Chop Scullery, a lot of the miniatures that have been coming out this year are like halflings and gnomes and stuff. That's the kind of this shop is I don't know if it's a restaurant. I'm not sure you can really eat there. I think you kind of get your stew to go. But they feed a lot of people in Brinewind, and it's run by all little folk. So it's all halflings and gnomes, and I think there's one guy that's a mongrel man. But a lot of the characters have been coming out. If you've been watching Reaper Live and seeing previews, those are some of the characters. So Validator said, which paint from Brinewind was the liner? It is the Rogue Shadow. And that, where did I put my swatch? So that's that one. Yeah, I'm not sure if the color's coming through really well. It's like a blackish brown, brownish black. But there's just a little undertone of a richer color. It's nice. I was going to use that possibly as the shadow tone for that figure that I will paint next week now. Is it darker than brown liner? Yeah, I guess it probably is. And then this is just gorgeous Izzy art. It's so pretty. Nomig Zeke said he had to get the Spearfishing Club shirt, even if he might not be able to attend. Oh, that's too bad. I'm sorry that you won't be able to attend. Mrs. Trashorama got her paints, so I need to buy a set of the sew. And speaking of the Spearfishing Club, I think this is what the shirt might look a little different because it doesn't have to be in a circle. But that's the picture that's on the Spearfishing Club shirt, which is, they're on TeePublic and I want to say another one. I bet Quindy knows. Hopefully Quindy will help. Kurnoku says he got, or they got Rogue Shadow in a random paint bag last year. It's awesome. Yes, I think we got previews of some of the shadows in they were selling off some of the paints that got discontinued, kind of the last copies of them. And if you bought them kind of by the bag, you got a test liner in each one. So we kind of got a preview of that. So if there are any of these that you want me to take out of the package, let me know. So this is Captain Barty Red, and there's information in the source book about the Bartys. So he's an undead character who's been reanimated, but they're intelligent undead. And they want to have everyone join them, so they are pretty intimidating opponents, I would say, for players to fight against. So he's the leader of them. I think they already released some of the Sons of Barty last year, I want to say. I'm like so bad at knowing what is released and when and what it's called. These are zombie pirates that Bob did, which was, I was debating between these and the mini that, maybe I should open these. Let me just get my little opener thing. The mini that Julie did for what to paint. Sorry, I should have been prepared for this. It had been my intention to be prepared. I have some kind of stubby thing. Sometimes these blister packs are hard to open. But I will just try to stab it with this stabby thing. It is not as effective. Alright. Apologies for the crunching. Trashorama said, last year I had to paint up some weird flesh tubes from Chronoscope for Sons of Barty as they were held up for the chaos. That's true. I think some of them are in the Kickstarter. So we can zoom in even more on Bob's awesome zombie pirates. I mean, he's clearly bearing a grudge. I got this guy. What was in this one's hand? Oh, he's got an axe and a sword. This one just has an axe. He didn't plan as well. Yeah, I actually do watch ASMR sometimes, Quinty. I think I like the ones they call personal attention better than all the crinkly, but sometimes the crinkly's fun. And then this one has 2 swords. But they all have like very piratical costumes, but clearly decayed from their months or years at sea. So they're pretty cool. And then these are the Build-A-Pirates, which I will also open, although I will not build a pirate right now. Maybe I could build a pirate next week. Because if I could build a pirate, then anyone can build a pirate. So the idea of these is that you have these body blanks. And then you have different heads. This one's got an eye patch. This one's a little squinty. He's also got the bowl cut, looks like. Because probably, you know, you don't always have the best hairstylist on your pirate ship. And then you have 3 choices of right arm. And 3 choices of left arm. Although I don't... Yeah, no, they are specific, I think. So you can mix and match which head you use, and you could, you know, have the head looking to the side. And the same with the arms, since it's just a clean cut on each side. You can, you know, have him ready to strike, or he's holding it down here. You've got a lot of flexibility for how you want to portray the character. Now, these are Bones USA, I believe. Yes. So I think that they will glue fine with just super glue, but I would possibly want to pin the limbs on just to be safe. Or even just to help the glue hold. But I don't know. I guess I could test. Maybe I could put some together for you with and without glue, and then we could leave them, and the next week come back and test whether it held. And the reason I say that is, so you know, super glue sets really fast, and that's why people like to use it. I often use 5-minute epoxy for a reason I'm about to reveal. Super glue doesn't fully cure for at least 24 hours. So you shouldn't really be stress testing joins until at least 24 hours has gone by. And that's one reason I use the 5-minute epoxy, because I have to hold it for 5 minutes, but after an hour, it's fully cured. So if I need to work with something right away, or as soon as possible, that allows me to do that quicker. So Switchblade said, I really wish you guys would start putting them on the round 25mm bases. This is something that I have no input into, but some of the Reaper bases, and I don't know if I have any close enough to grab, you can put them in the bottom of the base and then build up around them. So you can get a uniform base. The problem is that you play a game that used 24-inch round bases, or 25mm. 25 inches would be quite a game scale. 25mm round bases, but there are other games that want people to use square bases, and there are other people that just want to grab this and get it out of the package and get it on the table as quickly as possible. So it's kind of a middle ground is what Reaper goes for. So in a way, nobody is happy, but hopefully nobody is deeply unhappy, I guess. I guess that's what we're going for. So this is Hawthorne Crab and his puppets. So speaking of puppets, he controls these to do scary, spooky things with. We'll open this. Since the puppets are a little smaller, this will give you a closer look at them. So on this figure, since it's not, the intention is not that you can mix and match like with the other pirates, there's a ball and socket, and there's a bit of flash, so I can't get it fully as close as I might like. But, so there's more material for the glue to stick to, and the socket is actually, you know, going inside the main body of the figure. So with a Bones USA, whatever, I would have no qualms about just using glue for that. I wouldn't feel like I needed to use a pin. He's a very cool figure. He's got a lot of character. And he's a pretty snazzy dresser. I like that. He goes for the accessories and whatnot. And then here are the poppets. Hi, Otter Mama. And Trash says, I'm using the stitch golems that already exist in the catalog. So the big guys that are like made out of burlap bags and stuff, those are very cool. So yes, there's no reason he couldn't make bigger, scarier constructs to control as well. What else have we got? This is the Drunken Mermaid. The one I've shown you before is a metal one, but this is what she looks like because they hadn't made these ones yet when Juan sent them to me. Otter Mama says her hubby wants her to buy 2 to 3 more of the Puppet Master, so he wants all the puppets to go with the stitch golems. That's going to be a lot of golem action for your players. And this one also has the ball and socket type thing, and this is just a piece of flash here. I can probably just get it off with my fingers, but certainly I can get it off with a knife or clippers. So she's got this arm that's holding the mug of ale. But I've seen a lot of questions in chat about where is the other arm? And it's here. So it's like she's holding it up over her head like this, but she's got a lot of hair. So it's not as obvious to see, particularly if you haven't primed it yet. Because I actually thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, does she just not have another arm? Because it's supposed to be a statue, not a real character. And then I was like, oh, no, there it is. So I saw it better once I primed it. And now, actually, in the gray Bones USA, it's a little more obvious than it was on the metal when I first looked. She is very pretty. And I'm glad to have a second one because I want to try something with the other one, and I'm not sure it's going to work. So I have a backup if I screwed up. Now this is the one that I had chosen to paint today, but I will paint next time. So this is Hackle Blackhook Knoll Pirate, and I've left the flash and stuff on. So I did dip this in isopropyl alcohol, which is how I like to prep all my figures, but Bones particularly, so the paint sticks a little better. Because I didn't want you, if I could do that on stream, but then you'd have to wait for the alcohol to evaporate before I could start painting. So I did that, but I was going to take care of any flash or mold lines on screen so that you can see how that goes. Let's see if I can get this back over. Nope, that doesn't make any difference. I was just trying to fix my lights a little. I like this a lot. There's just a sense of maniacal glee that fits a pirate well, I think. It's got the little hook hand and everything. But I also, and I'll save these for next time, I found some real hyena kind of fun facts because the kind of cultural identity of what people think hyenas are like is actually not very true, and they're actually really interesting animals with a complex social structure. They lions steal more from them than hyenas steal from lions. So I just thought that would be interesting to have on hand for when my paint was drying. I could share some fun facts. So I don't think that was the one that the giant die that I don't have was supposed to be in. Oh, I'll do the extras. So if you get the mega bundle, you get and I really love this. I want to get more of these. So this is Stumpy, Dan McGinty, and the Grog Hog. And he's even got, let me get him out of here so you can see his little mixing pots. Oh, we're getting some more ASMR moments here because the paper is not cooperating at all. So it even says Black Chum Rum on his stew pot, which I think is pretty cool. I don't know if I can zoom in even more. And he's got, I mean, you can see what all the tools are in his apron. That's pretty fun. Non-metallic pig. That would be interesting, I guess. So he's got lots of little accoutrements. But look at his buddy. Is this cute or what? In real life, big pigs kind of scare me a little. My father had a farm for a while, And I was pretty sure that the big pigs would be perfectly happy to eat me, and I don't think I was wrong. But the little ones were super cute. So I think I want to get. I mean, I don't know how many miniatures need a pet pig with them. I think so many miniatures need to have a pet pig with them. Is my answer to that. What else do we have here? So then these are, for some reason I got 2 elves. I think Michael Proctor, who plays an elf in our role-playing game on Friday nights, I think he packed my package, and he's like, you need more of Abran's friends. So I got 2 of Elanter, the Lost Prince, but I suspect that was a goof. So those are fun. And then this is the new version of Erlen. And I should have grabbed, I forgot, I have a version of Erlen that was one of the earlier miniatures that I painted, the original one. And I did a really weird base. But I had fun, so it was fun. Let's see, I'm going to open this because the original Erlen came with like a little sensor or something that was part of her, like all 4 of the elementals in that series had, oh, look at her hair. Oh, I like painting hair. That's going to be fun. Okay. So this, I'm not sure if this is actually resin. I think this might be resin, and that's why it's got extra padding. It certainly is a different color than the other Bones USA, so I'm pretty sure that is resin. And then this guy is pretty cool. And you can, write the names of your enemies on a scroll or something. Or friends. I did have to paint, I painted the Christmas mouselings for Reaper, and one of them has like the who's been naughty and nice list. And I did pick Reaper people, but I kind of had to pick Reaper people who had shorter names so that I could fit them on the scroll. Okay, so that, and they come in one of these that also helps protect them. And I think if you pre-order it at a certain time, you got even more things. But I didn't really do that. Let's do the hobby box next. I wrote things in my plastic bag so that I remember which is which. Let's start with the which mug I got there, which is the Black Chum rum. And then it's even got little, Rum Tea Bay Distillers, little extra authentic parts there. I'll just put that under my other cup. And then this is the Game Envy hobby holder. And here's what it looks like when you put it together, because this was in the hobby box from the last swipe thing. It's pretty cool. So this spins around so you can brace your hand on it when you're painting detail. And then I just put some of the, so it's this double-sided mounting tape. I use the 3M brand, but we were talking about this on Reaper. Somebody asked on Reaper's Facebook group what people use to stick minis if poster tack doesn't work, which it doesn't often. It doesn't work as well on these flat bottom ones because there's not really as much for the poster tack to stick to. And someone else says Gorilla Glue makes a version of this. I think it's clear even, but it doesn't stick as much. So that is like the one downside of these. Sometimes when I pull the miniature off, some of the gunk sticks to the bottom of the miniature and I have to scrape it off. Malander says, I like the idea of painting the pig pink and then using inks to put stains all over his snout and forequarters from getting into the food, which I'm sure that he would. He would get into the food. So that, actually, I'll just leave that out for now. And then this is a new style of pokey tool. I'm excited. And I'm going to take this out of here. And Julie made this for us. It's suitably pirate themed. And then you even know what it's from. It's from ReaperCon 21. And I'm going to put this right here beside my painting area, which is where I use them. I'm very excited. He's pretty cool. And then this is the original, if you have the original, just so you can see the scale difference. do something else with that. And then we have more paint because, yay, paint. So this is the Grave and Gloom palette, which I think someone was talking about Necromancer Purple in the chat recently. And Death Knight Black is the liner on this one, which I did forget to write it on my swatches, but it's that one. It's a pretty cool color. I like it. This is also a really nice highlight color. And that's the Necromancer Purple. This one is a metallic. And I used the Grave Gloom some on the... I did some extra highlights on this guy's bag, and then when I did the trousers on the blacksmith, I was using those for highlighting as well. So that's the hobby, or the hobby box paint set, which is very cool. Because I just love paint. You guys have seen my wall, which I can't even get my whole wall in a shot. This is a brush holder. So they had one of these in the last swag box, but this one is pirate themed. So that does kind of make it super cool, I think, because it's like the side of a deck. You've got the swords and the wooden plank thing. This does require some assembly, of course, but I'm pretty sure all you would need is super glue to put that together. And then here's a very fun part of the box. So I have one floating solo, I assume because it just didn't fit in this other box, but this is the, interestingly not labeled brush, but it's the 000 synthetic that Reaper sells. Now Reaper doesn't make brushes. Brush making is a very specialized activity, so they get those from another company. And then this is, I'm going to say the 1. This is the 1 of the synthetics. I have some of these not in the package. This is the 0. Not in the package. I can show you if you want. And then this is the Super Micro 40-0. Now, honestly, so this is a sable brush. This is so small, I would rarely use this. The main thing that I use this one for, and even then, I kind of use the 20-0 more. I use these for those miniatures that I paint that have like, it looks like a woven clock texture or like tiny little dots. I like these brushes for that. But even for doing eyes, like, I mean, I guess you could try this one, but sometimes the problem is the paint will dry quickly, particularly if you live in a drier climate, which I do not. So I haven't tried using those in a drier climate. But if you can, I would probably say try using this one. This is the 5-0. So try to do your detail work with this one first, lining, eyes, stuff like that. And if that doesn't work, then go ahead and grab the super tiny ones. But you may find that you can actually do more with this size than you think you can because it holds more paint. But the tip is still really fine. So Kironico says, I love your wall of paint. I want one like that when I grew up. Yeah, I only got that in the past couple of years. So I used to have like all these. I had, they were called the paintier because they have tiers. So I had 3 of those, and then I had like a stadium style set of shelves. And this was all on my desk. I had a really big desk, but the working area was getting smaller and smaller because I had all that on it. And then I still had, like, I think I had metallics and inks somewhere separate, and I had another brand somewhere separate. So it was getting kind of crazy. So it was nice when we redid some stuff in the house. I was like, well, could I put them up on the wall? Because that would, I do have to go over to the wall if I want another paint instead of just reaching around, but I can see them better, and I mean, it does look nice. I like it. 2M Olaf says, can the brush holder be purchased separately? Not to my knowledge. If they have extras of things after they make all the boxes and stuff, and after, like, this will probably happen after ReaperCon when people have more time over at Reaper, they would sell them separately, but I honestly don't know if there are plans to sell this individually going forward, or if this is, like, they've talked about how they're going to make special brush holders for events to be able to do stuff like that. So They may not have this one in the future, but they might have another one. Okay, I May Be One says it's slated for September release on the website. So that would be cool. I bet they will have them at ReaperCon, as Samurai Jack also mentions. So if you aren't going, but you have a friend who's going, you should probably get someone to pick them up, or just wait for the website release. So that was the hobby box, which I think is what the big dice guy is supposed to be in. The 20-sided die that's like a little character. But my box didn't have that, and I knew that when I received it. But I should be able to get one later, and that's resin. So, and I imagine, I've seen some other people. It's a big, chunky guy. I guess I should have brought over the small one that... It's not, it's actually a somewhat different sculpt than the small one. But at least gives you an idea. So it's these dice characters that Bobby Jackson sculpted. So going on to the one that's just called Swag Box, which the small box that I showed at the beginning of the show, and I now have no idea what I did with, this was the stuff in that box. Now this is going to sound weird, but I'm super excited about this pen. I actually really, for ballpoint pens, the ones I get from Reaper are my favorite ballpoint pens. And all of them in the past have been this part and this part were black, and then it just had like the color art for that year or whatever. Because some of them aren't for ReaperCon. They've done some for some of the miniature lines and the paint lines and stuff. But now we have color, and it goes with the image. I'm very excited. So I like them. They write nice and smoothly. They don't get that goopy thing. I mean, all ballpoints get that goopy thing, but they don't get it like immediately the way some of them do. So this is the Cup of the Wicked Hand. And I hope it's coming through a little differently on your screen than mine, because it looks like a dull green on my screen, but in life it's a nice bright saturated green. And that is another one of the factions. They're like criminals and scoundrels and people that are kind of, this is their last chance. And the guy who runs this ship he runs with an iron hand, basically. Nomad Zeke says the Reaper pens are nice. Some of the nicer writing ones I've got still beaten by my fountain pens. Well, fountain pen's like a different category of pen. I mean, I have fountain pens that I really like as well, and then special pens for art stuff. But for like regular, I'm just taking notes in a ballpoint pen, which I still take notes in a pencil for some reason. I'm just really worried about that. And Trash says, please leave a positive Yelp review of the pen. So I don't know why I opened this, because it's not like I don't have a swatch of it right here. So that's the Rusted Anchor, Brinewood Brass, and the Black Pearl, which is also a metallic, but it's not, it's probably got a lot of pigment in it, is why it's not as shiny. So that's partly what this guy's cloak was painted with. Because it's so dark, when I did the painting, I did a mix of these two as kind of like my mid-tone color, and then I used matte paints that were very similar to that color to do the shading. But I did that partly because very dark things don't always show up right on screen. So if I were painting that for my own devices, I might have started with just the Black Pearl and then worked up to another color that's in this set, I believe. But so those ones are in the little blister. But then there's also this set, which is the Dark Reach palette. And that has this color Burnished Platinum, which is what I used to highlight that cloak. And I thought those went really well together. So I'm glad that they're in the same box, the Black Pearl and the Burnished Platinum, because they go well together. Nomad Zeke says I use a Lamy fountain pen for everyday use. I have a couple of Lamy Safaris, and I've got them partly because it's weird. I'm fine when I paint. I don't, death grip a paintbrush, but I death grip a pen. And I've got kind of like there's some. I cut it off recently, but right there goes kind of weird, and there's like a permanent indentation. So I got a fountain pen to write with because you don't have to grip as tightly in hopes that it would be better on my hand. But then I just like to erase so much that I ended up very rarely using it for its intended purpose. So that's the Dark Reach palette. What other things do we have? Here's something to use your pen on, is the Reaper class notes. So this is great if you're coming to ReaperCon. Definitely bring this or another notebook. I had a notebook I used for many years for notes from paint classes that I took, so I would bring that one, but I need a new one because I filled it up. So maybe I will use this. And then it's handy because it's got a little envelope with the slide closure. So if you get ribbons that you haven't had a chance to attach to your badge yet, or maybe someone gives you their card in their class or something to look at their website, you can store stuff like that in there. Kuro Nico asks, is drow skin close to the discontinued dusky skin? And yes, the answer is yes. It's not identical, but it is close. I put it aside because I thought I might use it today. There. So that's the drow skin. I don't have a side-by-side, but I did look at them side-by-side. It's a little darker, I think, and just maybe a little browner, but it's very close, and you could use it for the same things. So this is the kind of color I like this to highlight black or shade white. I mean, I might not go all the way down to this color if I were shading white, and I might go a little lighter than this if I were highlighting black. But if it's something natural, like an animal or animal fur, rocks, stuff like that, I prefer a color like this to a straight, natural gray or neutral gray, because this is too neutral. This is artificial. This doesn't exist in nature. Between the way light is colored and the way natural things look, it's just, well, let me see if I got a medium value one. I think that actually is the closest medium value gray I have. This is just more natural because it's got a little bit of color in there. Tress says, you need a notebook for done things Abran does. Maybe more than one. Yes, that is probably true. And Kuroniko says, yay, I think I may have painted Dusky Skin when it was discontinued. Yeah, it was one of the ones that I stocked up on because I use it so much for those things. And I know that Michael Proctor uses it a lot too. I've used it for like a dingy kind of non-metallic metal too, I think. I tend to use stone gray a little more for that. And stone gray is also nice for natural grays. I don't think it highlights black quite as well. And I mean the whole stone gray triad when I say stone gray, because I just tend to think of things. Some paints I tend to think of in a group, weirdly. I don't know if that even makes sense, but that's who I am. So there are some more miniatures in here. This is Captain Blackscale, the Dragon Folk. And I just started playing a Dragon Folk character. Now we're playing online because we're still kind of quarantining a bit. And then I think some of the players in our group with our quarantine group that we started, they've got kids. It's just going to be easier for them if we stay online than if we try to do it in person. But I was thinking about whether my character's actually a bard, but I was thinking about whether this might fit my character. But I will have to look at the ones that were in the Kickstarter as well. But this is a very cool. There's like a noble dignity in the face that I like. And then that's just a cool coat. It's one of those cool coats. Almost like a private investigator or something. So I like that one a lot. But I didn't pick that one for what I would paint. Because I thought I might want to paint it like my character, I might want to think about it a little harder than painting on stream. Let's see. Allender says, the only triad I'm irked is no more that I use like a mug is the Redstone Triad. I am a little sad about the Redstone Triad. It did have some issues, not in terms of longevity. It was something that only people who paint a certain way even notice. But if you painted a coat and let it dry and then painted on top of it, it didn't always, like you could sometimes see where the new paint was. It's hard to explain. But and then the replacement for Redstone also got canceled, so I'm not sure what we're meant to paint bricks and terracotta and stuff like that with, but I will take that up with the authorities. So I'm not going to open the Shipwreck Sophie. I think I have at least one of every Sophie in the blister. So she's kind of more of a collection thing, I guess. Well, possibly I didn't go to the very first ReaperCon, and I didn't go to the third one, and I think I've been to every one other than that. But I did manage to get a copy of the miniature. I mean, now you can get them, but it used to be that one from the first ReaperCon was like really hard to get. And I probably also have most of the mouselings in. Usually I paint the convention mouseling, but it's 2, and Ron didn't say anything to me about it. But maybe I'll paint him just for fun. I love mouselings. I always have. And these guys are just especially fun. I mean, you can just picture them at the tavern having had way too much, singing off key. I like them a lot. Trash says, I have Motorcycle Sophie. That's from one of the Kickstarters, right? I think so. I'm pretty sure I do. That is in the pile of stuff that's still packed away, but I'm pretty sure that I would have ordered that because I had all the other Sophies, so I would have been like, well, I need to get that one. Who else do we have? Oh, I'm also very excited about this mini, because we just don't get as many ladies in pretty dresses as I would like to paint. And now we have one. If she had been available when I was doing the silks and satin metallic thing, I would absolutely have picked her out for that. And I'm probably going to have to get a few more of her and see if I could do something like that. But I was thinking about, there's a couple of blue metallics, but there's some pink ones. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could go for like a silky, satiny look. Trash says, John said the Motorcycle Sophie was really hard to make. Yeah, I think it ripped up a lot of molds. And so probably it was one of those things that the mold had to be like at exactly the right temperature. And there's a whole art to casting even. So there's an art to mold making, but then there's also an art to casting the figures you have to let the mold warm up a little, so the first few aren't always usable, and then like I kind of have a thing about getting burned, so I've never tried it. Sometimes when you take the tour, and I bet they won't do this year, but sometimes when you take the tour, they let someone pour the metal in and break them out of the molds. And I have a picture of Aaron Corporia doing that, but I am not brave enough to do that. I would be afraid of the metal drops and stuff. And you do have to, you absolutely have to be careful. There's a lot of fans there as well, because they coat so when they make a metal miniature like this, they coat the mold with like a talcum powder. I don't think it's exactly that, but it's something like that, so that the miniatures release better. So that's one reason I tell you to wash your miniatures, is I know there's stuff on here. And then I also know that QC has picked this up with their hands to look at it and make sure that it's good enough to sell. And then I know the people who put it in this little blister thing. So these things, they call it the Wheel of Pain. I think just because it's boring. But, so there's like a circle wooden thing, and these fit in. And there's different circles for the different sizes of blisters, of course. So you have a bunch of these in the wheel, and then you've got a box full of that miniature, and you're just putting one in each compartment, and then you put the paper things over, and there's like a heat glue thing. So it's like a heat activated glue is on the blister side, I think, on this side, that attaches the blister pack to the thing, and then you pull them out. But so when the person is putting the miniatures in the thing, I don't think they have to wear gloves in that one. They do have to wear gloves for the casting, because things are hot, but there's nothing in the packaging for safety reasons that they have to wear gloves. So if they had a big greasy lunch, that's why you want to wash your miniatures. Nomad Zeke said he got the Urban Legend bike Sophie, new in box, and paid $20. That seems like a pretty good deal. I'm not even sure if they're separated off. Like, I just had a big bin of like Reaper blisters and the bin is like just the right height to put blister packs in. And I don't know that they even make those anymore. So I got like 3 of them, and I had one dark sword, one reaper, and then one kind of other. But actually, well, I said something about corporea a minute ago, so I'm going to briefly try to promote a charitable activity that I'm involved in, and so is Erin Corporea, and so are some of the other reaper painters. So my apologies while I bore you with this. If you follow my Facebook page, you've already seen this, but just in case. So there's something called the Nova Open Foundation, and they have people paint miniatures, and it's not an auction, it's a raffle. So you buy a raffle ticket, you buy lots of raffle tickets if you want to try to really try to win something. And the charities that things are going to this year are the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, Doctors Without Borders, and the Fisher House. So this is my miniature, and I will try to show you a better picture of that as well in a minute. But so there's an interesting story about this miniature. I think Ron referenced that, but well, anyway, this is mine. This one is by Tish Walter, who also paints some Reaper things. You may, if you've come to ReaperCon, maybe you've taken a class with her. And this is by Erin Hartwell, Corporea, who also paints for Reaper sometimes. She did the giant in the Greek box this year, I think, for the Kickstarter. Well, not this. She painted it not this year, but previous years. But it just came out for all of you, is what I mean by this year. And this is I want to try to win this because I love Rocky, and this is like a very adorable, saucy Rocky. The charity I chose is Breast Cancer Research Foundation because my stepmother died from breast cancer, and I know some other people who've suffered with it. So I wanted to do that in her honor. And Erin, who is a doctor, has unsurprisingly chosen Doctors Without Borders, and I actually didn't make a mental note of which charity Tish had chosen. So there's the webpage there, which Quindy has also put in the chat, which is more useful than me writing it on paper like I do. But so other artists who are doing this are Matt DiPietro. He's donating, most of the things are miniatures, and a lot of them are GW miniatures. But a few people have donated stuff like private coaching, which I think is what Matt has. So let me see if I can get a picture up while I read the other names to you. I tried to pick out people who I figure Reaper people know who they are. But I'll get you. This is a light obscured picture of my figure. With the freehand is the part that most people like. And there's Erin's. I had some other views. I did work a lot on the face on this one too. So what happened is this was a few years back was Reaper's 20th anniversary, and there's when I mentioned using the brush for the dots. Those are every one of those is a million tiny little dots. So this is actually freehand too. It's just not as obvious freehand. So Reaper had their anniversary, and I think I painted a few of the miniatures for the anniversary. But this was one of the ones Ron asked me to paint, and he had like an old piece of art that he was kind of like, don't paint it exactly like this, but this is sort of the inspiration. So the colors of red and brown kind of came from that. But like, so I know it's a thief, and they're trying not to stand out, but also if you're a successful thief, like, you need to enjoy your booty. So my feeling was, I'll give her a fancy inside of the cloak because she can wrap it around her when she's being stealthy and whatnot, and no one will see it. But it's just a little way to indicate that she's good at her job. So that was my thought process with that. So this figure, the one that's in the raffle, is a Metal Master because this was intended to be in the Reaper Studio collection. And after I painted it, there was very enthusiastic response to it, and someone contacted me privately and asked me if I would be willing to sell it. So I talked to Ron. I said, look, I'll paint you another one, which I painted totally different than this. I didn't include the pictures of that for some reason, but I will try and show you guys that one, because I actually Ron has that one because I had to paint it for Ron, but I do have pictures. And then for various reasons on both their side and my side, the sale never actually happened. And I thought, well, since it's been so long since I did say enjoy your booty, Bryce. Always enjoy your booty. Since the sale never happened, and clearly I've continued to live without that money just fine, when they contacted me about doing something for a charity, I thought, well, why don't why don't I put this to charity, since it didn't work out the way it was supposed to. Especially since it is a special miniature. It's an anniversary thing that I don't think it's for sale. There's a modified version of this, so the legs, I think, is one of the Kickstarter miniatures. But this exact sculpt is no longer for sale, and I did painting that people seemed to like. It seemed like a good one to put into the contest. And then this is Aaron's again, he's so adorable, I can't even take it. Because I've always loved the Rockies, and I had to paint all of them red when I painted them, because they're all Rocky, the red, he's just doing different things. But I love seeing people posting them in these fantastic color schemes and doing like rainbow ones where they're all different colors and stuff. But I love Aaron's painting in general, and I love this Rocky in particular, so I'm definitely going to be throwing my raffle money at that. And then this is Tish's, this is a Darksword figure, and it's actually their family cat. So her cat is Pepper, and this is a miniature of Pepper, and it's been painted by the person who lives with Pepper. So my apologies for kind of a bit of an advertisement, but I kind of wanted to use my platform to, they are raising a lot of money this year. Like, it's been very successful. And I hope that it continues to be. But I meant to have that up while I told you other names. So here, we'll just look at Drunken Mousings while I tell you other names. So Matt DiPietro is doing the private coaching, is the raffle, his thing for raffles. Michelle Farnsworth, if you've come to ReaperCon, you know who Michelle Farnsworth is. She's also suffered with breast cancer. Sean Fulton, he does a lot of behind the scenes work as well as doing painting something for the raffle. Yeji Kim, who's also, I don't know if she's coming this year, but she has come to ReaperCon and taught classes, I believe. Roman Lapat, I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong. Justin McCoy from Secret Weapon Miniatures, so they've been a vendor at ReaperCons, and I think he's done classes at ReaperCons as well. Anna Polanskak, definitely saying that name wrong. Duncan Rhodes, really big guy in the... Samurai Jack confirms that Yeji's teaching. Duncan Rhodes is a really big guy in the Games Workshop community, and the vast majority of the figures in the raffles are Games Workshop. So if you play Games Workshop games and you'd like to have a really amazing commander or cool unit, there are also lots of those that you can buy raffle tickets for. Chris Spots, who is coming to ReaperCon this year. I don't know if he's teaching or not, but he's coming. Lynn Stahl, she's also taught and attended ReaperCon many years. Bryce says Justin did the weathering class for online ReaperCon. That would make sense. Weathering is kind of like a big area of expertise for him, and his business has cool products, but he's also very knowledgeable in how to create weathering effects. Dave Taylor, AJ Thornton, Vince Venturella, he's a big YouTube painter. So is Scott Miniac Walter. Clay Williams is a great guy. Caleb Wisenbach, and this was, I don't even think this is 25% of the artists that I listed. It may be close, but there are like so many people. So where are we? It's almost 4. I guess I could just start painting that guy a little or something. If I can find him, because now I put everything away in maximum chaos, which is really how I live my life. No one knows that my life is way more chaotic than it seems at conventions where I'm like the super organized person. It's all an illusion. So there's more crinkling. Apologies and or you're welcome to the ASMR people. There he is. Hackle. So I did not make a lot of plans for how I'm going to paint this guy, which, I mean, a lot of us paint that way. We don't always start off with a plan. But I'm going to try and keep in mind some of the things that I've been talking about the past few weeks with, like, having making it clear to read and having a focal point and stuff like that. And that is harder to do when you're just kind of painting off the cuff. That's where a lot of us get into trouble. Maybe we start with, well, I know I want to make, like I've got that problem with this guy now. It's like, okay, well, that's a really cool cloak. What do I do with the rest of him? I don't know. So I've been pondering that because I didn't make a plan in advance. So sometimes I make a plan in advance. Sometimes I don't. I did look up some hyenas, as I mentioned, and they don't really look the real life hyenas coloring doesn't really look like the way they've been portrayed in Dungeons and Dragons historically. Typically, they're very dark fur and dark skin, and then sometimes with the spots and stripes and stuff. And I believe, and I didn't know this until the other day when I was like, well, let's look up some pictures of the D&D one, and then I found a site that had like information for D&D players, and they are like the lineage of a demon-touched creature. So that's why they're all evil and creepy and whatnot. So I did not know that. So that's why they're horrible, even though real life hyenas are not. But step one is, I know there's at least one big piece of flash or something right there that I want to address. And I also want to look it over for mold lines. So did any of you get your swag boxes already? And you're excited about them? Got some cool things. Probably some of you have already painted them. I go online and there's a guy who painted 2 pirate ships. I'm like, I probably wouldn't have taken it out of the box yet. Okay, overachievers. But that is what's cool about the community. So I have a regular X-Acto blades type style knife, and I also have, this is a scalpel blade. It's weirdly, it's also a number 11. That's the standard scalpel blade size, as well as the standard X-Acto blade, which is just a strange coincidence. I think that's so I have this, like a whole set of different knife handles, and in theory, it's like, well, one's the sharpest, newest one, and then one's pretty dull, that's for sculpting, and then one's kind of in between for like if I want to cut paper or something. But I know the best one is in the metal handle, and I don't remember what the other system is in the end, it turns out. So I should probably put a little label on them. But I do find, certainly with original bones, I would find that within 2 like standard humanoid size miniatures, this blade would dull. When I tried the scalpel, this goes a lot longer. So this will last a lot longer. But bear in mind, this is not necessarily a recommendation that you use a scalpel blade or an X-Acto blade. I'm just showing you stuff I do. I'm not telling you things to do, because if we recall what the purpose of a scalpel is, it is to cut human flesh. So be careful if you do choose to try one of those. Let's see. Quindy says, I haven't even brought my ships home from the mailroom here at the office. All right, Quindy's in my corner. She gets me. Let's see. Necro Tushu says, my Reapercon stuff should be here today. Oh, well, you're going to have fun unboxing. And Nomeg Zeke's swag box is also en route. Carrie Michael Crosby got theirs Friday. It's full of so much good stuff. I'm going to swatch the paint onto the bottles today, and then all my paint will be organized, and I'll have no excuse not to paint. Excellent. So tomorrow you're going to be painting, was what I heard you say. You'll have to come back and tell us all about it next week. Okay, so I actually haven't even looked at this guy with my close-up specs yet. And this is really, so I've painted the Bones USA. Yes, I'm also doing the exact thing you're not supposed to do. I do find that kind of a vegetable pairing motion works well, but also opens you up to the greatest risk of slicing yourself. This almost seems like something I'm going to put down here to slice off. This is a cutting mat. That's why it has the squares on it. It's supposed to be one of these self-healing cutting mats. When I got my new desk to go with my new paint shelf, it's glass, so I was worried about cutting it all up. And I discovered that they actually sell these. They make some huge versions of these. So I'm curious to see whether this is hard enough to scrape instead of having to pair the mold lines. But first I have to find some mold lines. So I think that's one on his pants here. So this is the way that I would prep a resin miniature. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus a little better. Take the knife out of the background. By scraping. And that was kind of the pain of Bones Classic, is that doesn't work. Because the material is very springy, which is great for longevity, they can take a lot of damage, but then it's a pain for prep. Where this slightly harder version plastic, I could break this sword if I bent it back and forth enough. I mean, you can eventually break a Bones Classic, but you have to work a lot harder. But I'm also just scraping off this mold line that's would make the wood grain on the base look less convincing. Now, if I were really, and I will do this sometimes on hair, so if I were really concerned about, this is not the exact tool that I do this with, but so the vertical wood grain here. So I went into the big notch with my knife to kind of clean up the mold line. And I do this on metal miniatures for hair or between fingers. Well, no, I use a file for between fingers. But if I were worried about, well, some of these lines got messed up, I can kind of etch back over where I filed. I can also try to fix it with paint instead of tools. So I don't think the etching tool is working, but I'm sure that the X-Acto blade will work. Yeah, that works fine. And as usual, how much of this type of stuff you do depends on what the purpose of the miniature is. So if you're just trying to get stuff quickly on the table, you probably don't care that there's a little mold line across the wood grain. And I'm not suggesting that you have to care. I'm just, as someone who tends to care, I'm just sharing the techniques that I have used. And actually, over the years, once Bones came out, I kind of got more relaxed. Because with a metal miniature, I mean, the amount that it cost, and then you had to prime it. So I would spend time prepping them. And it made me... I didn't experiment a lot, because a lot of effort went into the miniature before I even started putting paint on it. And now with Bones, I don't mind to just pick something up and start painting it. Like, I think maybe I did a little bit of getting rid of the mold lines on that guy before I painted him originally, but not a lot. And I like that. I really like that I can just grab a miniature and experiment. And if it doesn't go well, I didn't invest a lot of time in, so I don't have to be super annoyed about that. Necro Two Shades says, be careful scraping mold lines off Bones black. No one wants to breathe in black mold. Yeah. Luckily, now if you are sanding resin, and I would assume that it would probably be true for these harder plastics, you should wear like an N95 or other particle protecting mask. If you are like sand, so this is scraping, these particles are pretty big. I mean, if you are using like files like this or sandpaper where you're going to be making very small particles, those are not good for you to breathe. And I do, I mean, I don't, like I would end up sanding maybe the base or something, and I do try to remember and wear a mask when I do that. It's fairly rare that I work on, it's not unlikely that I work on true resin miniatures. Although I'm working on a lot of 3D prints now instead of resin, where, you know, they used to do some of the first casts in resin, and now a lot of them are 3D prints. And it's probably true of that kind of plastic too, that you should not be inhaling that. So I need to make sure that I'm being good about those as well. And I would treat those very similar to this. So the 3D prints that I've had, I find are a lot like resin. So they do well with scraping. I don't do this with metal miniatures. I know that some people do use like X-Acto knives to prep metal miniatures. I'm all about the files for metal miniatures. This is actually not my everyday file set. I don't know why this one came up first. This is my backup file set. But my everyday file set is the same thing, just I've used it longer. So that's my backup that I bought just in case something ever happens to these. And this is the one I really like for between fingers and hair strands. So this is Oh golly, I forget what they call it now. There is a specific name for this, which I will try to remember at some point. But it's kind of like 2 half rounds together. So it's got an edge. But the edge is tapered like this. So you can put it in between things where there's a line, like between fingers. Well, he doesn't have a hand, so he's not helping. So I'm not actually going to file. Well, you can actually file bones. So you can file Bones Classic. You just have to go so light. Like you have to imagine, people always think this is creepy when I say this. Pretend you're filing a baby's skin. Like you want it so it wouldn't hurt a baby. Like that's how light you're going with a file. And it's a diamond file, not the, crosshatch mega files. But this is the exact shape of file. Cross file? No. I've got a package that says what it is somewhere. And then if you get little hangy off bits, I call them gribblies, you just file the opposite direction. So I'll try to make a gribbly here by going like this. So I was filing pretty hard on the staff. So it's got little bits that stick up. So I'm just going to go really lightly, like I'm filing a baby, the opposite direction to get the gribblies off. Kind of. So that I don't do it a lot because usually when I'm grabbing am I frozen? If you guys can hear me, let me know. All my cameras are frozen. Nope, now I'm back. Okay. It looked like everything was frozen to me for a minute. I don't know if that happened to you. So I wouldn't I might do this guy's hand because a hand is going to be noticeable. But generally when I'm grabbing a bones figure to paint, it's something I don't want to spend a ton of prep time on. But this is I use this on metal miniatures as well. So that's my secret weapon for hair, and I feel like it is a crossing file. I think that's what it's called. It's called a crossing. That shape of file is called a crossing file. And I'm sure there are names for all of them. Like this has a name. It looks like a sword blade to me, but I'm sure that's not what it's called. But I mostly use the round, the half round, and the crossing. I'm not even sure why. This might be here just because it's a flat thing. So if I have to file like a base or something else flat on the bottom. Excuse me a moment. There's a cat going crazy behind my chair. What's happening? Are you stuck? Okay, come here, baby. You can come say hi to everybody. What you doing? Come say hi. So if you watch Reaper Live, this is a crossing file. Thank you, Bryce. Here's my little kitty. She does this when I'm painting too. She has no respect for the painting thing. It's like when she wants the love, it's time for the love. And so sometimes I close the door when I'm doing the stream so that she doesn't disturb the stream. But if I keep using files, it'll be okay. I don't want to use a knife where my kitty is, because she is going to swing her tail. Let's see if you. Yeah, that is what happens when I try to paint and I'm holding my kitty. So she's not one of these sit in your lap and work around her kitties. That's not her vibe. I don't think she knows what her tail is doing at any given time. It's just living its separate life from the rest of her. So let's try some file on here. And if I were smart, I would pick a section that's not as easy to see in case it doesn't like the file. I'll go here. There's just a little bit of, actually, let's use the round on the inside of this hook, because I couldn't get a X-Acto knife in there anyway. That's focusing on the stuff on the table instead of the miniature. Let me get my gray thing back. I think that helps it know what to pay attention on. Quindy says my Ygritte flicks her tail a lot, and it's only sometimes because she's mad. Yeah, Ella doesn't really get mad. She just gets confused, or if she doesn't like something that's happening, she just leaves. She's just like, fine, I'll be in another room until whatever that is stops. But as she's gotten older, she kind of got tired of taking crap from the other cats. So, well, now we just have one other cat, but he really wants to be her friend, and then she had a bad example when she was young of interaction. So I don't think she understands the concept of being friends with other cats. And I feel bad for him because he's kind of like a stalker. It's like she goes somewhere and then he'll show up and just sit like a foot away from her. And she's giving off that vibe like when you're on the bus and you don't want someone to sit next to you and you're like trying to manifest the vibes of don't sit next to me. She's doing that and he's just like ignoring it. The diamond files are working, but not quite as well as I would like. And I don't know if it's feasible to get in that little section. But I can certainly also say, like from a story point of view, that as a Knoll, perhaps he doesn't take 100% awesome care of his equipment. Although maybe it's a she, because that's one of the most interesting things about wheel hyenas. At least the spotted hyena. So there's 3 species. They're spotted, striped, and brown. You can see that the people who named those are being super creative. Thank you, Ella. That was helpful. So a lot of the fun facts are actually about the spotted hyena. So the striped and the brown are both scavengers. They don't really hunt that much. Do you want to go down? Okay, don't jump from here though. Hold on. You're too old to jump from this high. Here you go, baby. So the spotted hyenas are the hunters, and that has affected their like social structure more. And the females are visually indistinguishable from the males. They're actually usually stronger and bigger than the males. But when I say virtually indistinguishable, I do mean the genitalia. So they have what they call a pseudopenis, and they also have a scrotum that is filled with fatty deposits instead of gonads. And one of the things I read said to really tell the difference, you would sometimes have to touch the scrotal area to see if it's legit or not. And as if that weren't weird enough, the pseudopenis kind of is a multi-function organ for the females because they urinate, copulate, and give birth through the pseudopenis, which is in some ways a bad idea as it sounds. So it's tough on the mother to give birth, and sometimes the baby, in fact not an inconsequential amount of times, the babies can suffocate because it's a longer route out to the rest of the world. So they can suffocate while they're being born. And there's kind of like scientists aren't 100% sure why they do this weird thing. They think, well, one of the leading theories is that it's to have absolute control over who the female mates with, since they're putting a high investment of energy and the losing some of the babies and stuff. This gives them, like, basically there is no unwilling hyena female. We'll put it that way. Because it's so complex to have a penis and a pseudopenis get together that the hyena has to be interested in that happening. They're also a matriarchal society. Most of the groups are related females and they're young, and they nurture their young, including breastfeeding, for up to 2 years. And they think that's because they travel such a distance to hunt. So they need to be able to give the babies, well, the teenagers, I guess at that point, sustenance while they're traveling to the hunting area. But even though they're like getting a lot of treatment from like a lot of attention from the mother, they're born a lot more developed than a lot of animals. So their eyes are open, their muscles are coordinated, their teeth are erupted, and they're ready to bite. And this I thought was interesting. So because a lot of people I think of hyenas as kind of related to dogs, but in terms of how they categorize animals, they are closer to cats, and they do some cat-like behaviors of like grooming, parenting. Some of those are kind of more cat-like than dog-like, but morphologically and kind of behaviorally in terms of living in the groups and stuff like that, they're closer to dogs. So they independently look like dogs. Just like I think there was something going around the internet about how everything evolves into crabs. Like there's multiple evolutionary branches of crabs. So they are kind of an independent, looks like a dog, but it's not a dog, really, I guess is a convoluted way of so let's see what's going on in the comments. To all those barely listening, I bet Scrotum got your attention. Trashorama says, this is Clip City. What in the what? So let's see. I didn't go back far enough. Female hyenas are hardcore, says Kuroniko, and that is 100% true. Nomad Zeke says, this is not news to me, although I'm not saying why. I mean, oh, wait, I'm frozen again. All right, I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, I think it's back. Well, my chat went weird as well. Carrie Michael Crosby says, they often lose the first set of cubs and then are okay after that. It is a sad price of matriarchy. And Trash says, this is the worst children's book ever. But I thought it was interesting because, like, if you look at how hyenas versus lions are portrayed in, like, books and movies and our anthropomorphized versions of those. And even most African cultures hold the hyena in low regard. They're considered thieves and grave robbers and stuff like that. Like, they're not viewed in a very positive light, and then all the weird sex practices, so the 18th century people that were putting together bestiaries and stuff like that did not impress them. But in actual practice, they have these matriarchies. They can have groups of up to 150 individuals, and they're smart enough that each hyena learns the identity, the social rank, and the specific vocal calls of all of the members of the group. I didn't write down stuff about all of their vocal calls, but the one that we call laughing is actually, you can be heard up to 3 miles or 5 kilometers away, which is terrifying. But it means, hey, I found some food. Oh dear, I seem to be frozen again. Twitch is being sassy. Yes, it is, because I don't think it's my connection. Okay. All right, can you see in this camera, but the other camera is frozen? Because that would just be my camera then. And I can probably fix that. Wait, I clicked on the wrong thing. Hold on. So I can refresh. There we go. So hopefully all of the cameras are back now. Yes, it's Zazzle. Okay, but earlier when we were talking about the sword fishing and getting shirts and stuff, it's TeePublic and Zazzle, and if you're interested in getting any of the super cool Reapercon shirts, which you can wear even if you're not going to Reapercon, those are the places you can get them. And I've been wearing them like for a couple of months now for the stream, and I just, for today, decided to put something else on, because also you can hardly tell what my shirt is. So I think that's as much prep as I need to do. I'm going to break out some paint. Unless somebody has prep questions. So I'm just going to make sure I put the piece of parchment paper on right before the show, so I'm just making sure there's no excess drops of water. And I had this ready to go so that I could put the mini on there. So my thinking is that I'm going to do like a dark fur. So I was thinking I would use, where are my colors? I was thinking I would use these colors. So this is the Rogue Shadow Ashen Brown, that's actually a Kickstarter color, but I left all the Kickstarter colors out, as well as the ReaperCon colors from last year and this year. So this one is actually from last year, I think. And then I will probably also use some black. So I'm going to so their muzzles are often darker, which is going to work well because I'll be able to paint some, well, the tip of the muzzle is darker, than like around where the eyes will be is a little lighter. And then, at least in the D&D version, the longer fur is darker too. So I'm going to kind of use this as my mid-tone for the skin. And then this, but I'll probably start with black, is the mid-tone like for the dark fur. And then if I do spots, they would be in black. So that was my theory. And then what I have to think about, so I think that'll help make the focus. So if the nose is super dark, and then around that is lighter, and then the eyes are going to be dark and probably colored, hopefully that will help draw more attention to the face. Because the problem I'm going to have is these, and this is true with a lot of skin colors, these are not very saturated colors. And that's going to be what's kind of in the important area of the figure. So if I come in and I paint his pants like this color, that you're going to be looking just at those pants, because you're going to be like, holy crap. But I need to paint them some color. So I was thinking, I mean, like a brown would go, these are purpley colors. I mean, they're very desaturated versions of purple, but there's a little touch of purple on those. So I was thinking about like a tan, but I think I might do more like a brownie tan with the leather parts, because that's also closer to the face, so that's going to put like a warm, cool contrast and stuff up there. And out of lack of other ideas, I will probably paint the pants blue, but we'll see. We'll see if we get that far today. So I did try to shake my paints a bit before I started, but since I didn't 100% know what colors I was going to be, yeah, see, I don't think I shook that one enough. So when I do that, I gotta find a smaller little piece of paper. I usually just pop the, so to me that looks like there's a lot of more binder than there is pigment. There's just kind of this watery look that it gets. And I will usually put it back in and try to stir it some more, or shake it. I mean, if something is really gunked up, stirring is a good answer. But I don't think this is that gunked up because it's new. It's possible. Okay, don't listen for a minute. Okay. It's possible this is actually from that test set of colors. I can't remember if I got that out instead. I'm probably going to paint, I'm going to need more of this, I think, from darkest to lightest, which is typically not how I paint, actually. But it is, it can be a little faster The downside of it is I think you risk having things kind of too many things the same value, like all the midtones end up being this value. So we've talked about value before, but just because it's so important, so the danger with painting from dark to light is if I start all of my things here, and this is kind of my midtone, and then I end here with highlights, if I put that miniature into black and white, everything's going to look kind of the same, and things aren't going to stand out from one another. I need areas that are lighter from some areas and areas that are darker. So I need the overall color of things to include various points along this range and not all be there. And that's trickier to do if you're starting from like a super dark color, because you have to manage how much of the other colors you leave showing through the paint process, instead of, okay, this is my mid-tone, then I'm using this for the shadow, then I'm using this for the highlights. If you know, I want my mid-tone to say be in between those two, which I'm definitely going to need something that's in between those two. So let's just go ahead and mix one. If I want my mid-tone to end up like this, I might still start here, but I'm going to cover most of that up. I don't know if that made any sense. I think I'm not super clear today, but hopefully that made a little sense. Or you're all just reeling from the shock of the bizarre hyena situation. For some reason I didn't get paintbrushes out today. So now I have to look through the giant box of paintbrushes. Alright. So hopefully I may need to... Okay, don't get dizzy. I'm going to move the camera a little bit this way. Try to make it focus again. So it's not going to look like a huge difference, but the shorter fur areas, I'm going to use that rogue shadow on, and then the longer fur areas, I'm going to start the darkest color, just straight out black. Now some hyenas do actually, the feet are darker, or the bottom half of the legs is darker. All right, don't get dizzy again. I'm going to put this closer. Carrie Michael Crosby says spotted hyenas are awesome. They also inherit their clan stats from their mother. So if the matriarch has a cub, you can watch a little 3-year-old cub boss around a grown adult hyena and get away with it at the den. Yeah, that was fascinating to me, that the status is hereditary. Like, that just doesn't seem... How many animals do that? That seems like a very advanced thinking kind of way to do that. Well, my other thought with bringing attention to the face was if I put just a little bit of a warmer fur type thing in the middle of the face, so just a little bit like a tan, or, you know, brown, instead of this more gray color, that might also help. But I really don't always think through my miniatures, and sometimes that shows. Like, I've had some that turned out all right despite that, but I think I mentioned this last week, I'm already sort of handicapping myself and working at a disadvantage to if I had a plan or I was thinking about focus and people reading the miniature and that kind of thing while I was picking out the paint stuff. That would be better. I'll come back probably with that when I talked about putting the warmer brown. I will probably come back in and put that on after. But I'm going to make his feet and hands the black as well, I think. This one looks like a boy to me. His tail position is submissive. That is entirely possible. He also does look like he's about to have a throwdown with somebody. So hopefully not another hyena in his clan. But then these are D&D hyenas. People, well, they're hyena people, I guess, that are tainted from some demonic encounter that I didn't finish reading the details about. So they can play by slightly different rules, I guess. Oh, and I didn't thin down the paint at all. I know that some people, I suspect Anne tells you to thin the paint down for base coats. And in my opinion, I think fresh Reaper paint is at the perfect consistency. And I'm sure that some of you have seen me do this before, but in case we have anyone who hasn't been at prior shows, so my test for is the paint the right consistency for base coat is I run the brush through it, and if you imagine the brush is a boat and there's a wake behind it, if that wake fills in almost immediately, that to me is liquid enough to be a base coat that doesn't add texture to my miniature, which is all I'm going for. So for a base coat, you're just trying to get a coat of opaque color on the miniature. Unless, I mean, if you've done some kind of pre-shading thing like zenithal priming or something like that, maybe you don't want the paint to be 100% opaque. But if you're just getting paint on the miniature, your goal is probably to have that be a fairly opaque coverage. So the less you thin, the more opaque the paint is. Because water makes the paint, water or anything else you would add, make the paint more transparent. And as long as I'm not filling in like all the great detail of this fur that Julie has sculpted, because I bet Julie knows all this stuff about hyenas that we were saying. She's a whiz at sculpting animals because she's aware of how they behave in real life and the way they move and stuff like that. That helps her sculpting out a lot. That was the wrong paint. In fact, Julie is saying, unfortunately, the dominant tail position would require a separate piece to be cast. So that is why, I mean, maybe whoever he's fighting, he's scared of. Maybe it's somebody like Barty or something super scary. Because I would not want to become a son of Barty. And this is a little faster than I would do this in a real ideal world, but not a lot, really. I'm not super precise and persnickety about my base coats. If I can clean up something later, I would rather do that than be too fussy with it now. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily the way to be. If you are more precise from the beginning, then you have less cleanup work to go, and you're also building your brush control. Because it actually took me quite a long... I got away with a lot of things because I learned to work around not having a lot of brush control. But life with brush control is a bit easier, and I can do stuff like the crazy freehand on the cloak of that thief I showed earlier. Which I'm not going to say that wasn't stressful to do or whatever, because it was a little. I had somebody ask me about how I make a repeating pattern like that. And I'm like, well, pretty much the secret of that one is that it's not a repeating pattern. I had some motifs, so I looked at some brocade, and I picked out kind of like a few different a few different kind of vine, it would curve like this or it would curve like that. The shape of leaf I wanted to paint, and a couple of different flowers. And then I just kind of started somewhere and worked it in with, worked around the way the folds were going in the sculpture. I have painted a repeating motif where I took like a simplified version of a piece of brocade with a repeating pattern, and that is a whole other thing. It was kind of stressful, and it's imperfect, but it's interesting that I don't know that it's obvious to the viewer, but if I looked at it closely, I was like, okay, well, the size of, the pattern's like this big in this section, and it's that big in that section. I didn't maintain that the whole way through. It was actually it's harder to do a totally flat thing or a thing that's fairly flat than, something like this in some ways is easier to do because the pattern is falling off, like in the crevices. You're not going to see it as much. So if it's not as easy to see if it isn't perfectly symmetrical, if you've got basically the sizes right, it should work. But I don't think I have. Well, yeah, his coat's fairly flat. So there's a couple of little wrinkles, but overall the piece of material is fairly flat. It would be more obvious if I messed up a geometric or symmetrical kind of pattern on something like that than on something with a lot of folds or a lot of motion like on that thief. Now, sometimes you can have problems because the sculptors don't necessarily have to follow the laws of, like, this wouldn't necessarily be a square piece of cloth if you were able to unfold the sculpt. And that can cause issues with making freehand make sense sometimes, but it's not a big thing. Partly this digression is because I have paint drying now. So that is the one thing about base coat paint is you definitely want it to dry before you paint the next coat on, and I could see all kinds of shiny here. And I don't think listening to my hairdryer is ASMR. But what can I do instead? I can hit some places I missed instead. Yeah, I think the pants are almost completely separate, but maybe I'll noodle around with the sword. So I got out metallics, but I've shown you guys painting metallics recently, so I think I'm gonna mess around with non-metallics. Oh, let's use the new one. Here it goes. Maiden Voyage. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a nice long pen too. Yeah, see, I'm questioning whether I actually mixed that one. Nope, that's good. So this one is, these are not, there weren't a ton of grays and stuff in the Kickstarter set. So that was Pure White is there, Leather White is that one, Ancient Bark is that one. And those two don't necessarily go together, but we'll see if we make it work. This is one of the Pathfinder colors, Gosra Gray. I don't know what a Gosra is, but... And then this darker color is Mantis Gray from the Reaper Virtual Expo paints. I believe. Pretty sure. And, well, I already have black, but I will put out another little bubble of black just in case I do have to thin it down. So I'll probably start thicker, but thin down as I go. We'll see. Julie says she loves doing anthropomorphic creatures. They are. I mean, he's fun. He's very fierce in the face, even if he's not fierce in the tail. And then you've got how Julie's done the legs are different anatomy than if it was a person, which is cool. All right, I do have a gribbly. I'll get my file back, just because it's in a really noticeable spot. Good enough. Huh, did I actually choose a color that is like, it's almost Bones USA gray. That's funny. Okay. Now we'll just get an initial coat on there. Then I'm probably gonna goof around with some wet blending, which I don't always, I often paint wet on dry. So I do layering primarily, but I do like to do kind of wet on wet to kind of establish where stuff is. And this is, I need to think about where stuff is. So this view is the more important view because it's got his face in it. And I probably want it to be bright here and darker here, because that's going to be closer to his face. I have a ton of paint on there, so this may or may not kind of take right now. It's maybe too wet blending. That was just something that was in the paint. I do like to get things that are in the paint out of the paint if I can. And this is where, so I probably would come back and do, so there's like the face of the sword here, and then the edge is a different plane. Let me see if I can get in closer and make that make sense. So this is a plane, and then this edge is a plane, and the same thing on the back, and then these are another plane. So for non-metallic metal, I like to try to have the planes opposite to one another in terms of what is dark or light. So since I want to make it light up here, what's going to make it look light is if there's dark around it. So I want it to be dark on this plane. And I probably can't paint both of those things at the same time, even to lay down an initial kind of coat. So what I would likely do is do the big faces of the sword first, and then come back and do the edge planes. And that would include that edge as well. And this isn't as bright or dark as I might go in the end. I mean, this is a, you know, he's a pirate and he's demon descended race. So I'm figuring he's not the kind of guy who takes like super great care of his weapons. So I probably want, atmospherically speaking, a slightly darker metallic look. But I will still go fairly light. And I may need to thin down these colors. Because colors with white in them do tend to, that's a lot more opaque than than this. Even this fairly light gray. It's still more opaque than that. And that wasn't even pure white. I would probably wait and do the pure white as like a layer on top. But even there, you can kind of see that it already looks a little shiny. Because I put that dark thing on that face. And then I would do, I think I would do the same spot, partly because the sword is tilted down. But then, no, see, I have to look. I might have to do the opposite. So if I want it to be dark there, in theory it needs to be light there and dark there. Or I just ignore what it looks like from this angle. So that's the thing. People get all up in their heads with non-metallic metal. Like, how do you make it look good in every angle? And really, this is an issue with the whole miniature. Like, how often are people going to be looking at this angle of the miniature? They're probably not, because they're going to want to look at the front. Maybe they're going to want to see what's happening on the back. But they're not going to look at like an exact side view very often. You might end up on the table and that's just your view of somebody, but a lot of stuff is going on. So are you really going to sit there and think, oh, well, he looks terrible from that angle? So the thing with non-metallic metal, or if you do kind of the silk satin, the shaded metallics, like we did a few weeks ago, you're picking your prime viewing angles. And the same with all that stuff where I was talking about focus and stuff. A lot of that is you're picking your prime viewing angles and you're accepting that things may not look totally fantastically amazing from every single angle. So if I want the light to be at the tip of the sword on both of these long faces, which I think I do for various reasons, I'm not going to be following my rule of having opposite things happening on the planes, because both of the small edge planes are going to have to be dark. I think I do want to thin down the black a little. Carrie, Michael, and Julie are both hoping that Ron will encourage more anthropomorphic creatures for Bone 6. The unconfirmed Bone 6 that we all know is going to happen. I really don't have any insight. I'm saying that as a Reaper observer more than... Like, sometimes I'm the last person to know stuff, I think. I often, if I can't make Reaper live, I sometimes still go back and watch it, because that is the way that I learn things that I should know sometimes. Also, you got to check if you got voluntold on anything. So this is very imperfect in terms of blending. It's not like the worst ever, but gray is super hard to blend. Like pure neutral grays, I find, are the hardest things to blend. If that were for the table, I could probably live with that. Yes, future project, Wendy. Ron's future project that we all know is Bone 6. And then you put all the way white in. And you really get that shine. I will also be, for sure, going white right here, because that will look cool when I do that part. So let's see. I'm going to check on the fur, because it's like, for some reason, I guess because the wet paint is shiny, there are going to be little spots where I didn't cover up all the gray, and I can't see those until that first coat dries. And then, then they all come popping out. And I need to spot address them. Like there's one even right. That seems like a place I should have missed because that's on his face and stuff. And I think I keep wiping the fur off the, or wiping the paint off the top of the ears for some reason. I'm probably being naughty and touching the miniature more than I should be. But this color, because it's a liner, and for some reason, I do treat liners just like regular paint sometimes, particularly for shadowing. I like mixing liners for shades. Like I like blue liner, and I think many of them are no longer with us, but I use red and green liner for a similar purpose for mixing my own shades. And I think because it's slightly transparent is part of the reason I like it, although many dark colors are slightly transparent. But I definitely use a ton of blue liner. I decided to try to not use blue liner on this guy's skin because, well, I don't know why. I guess I just wasn't sure it would look as natural. But I am reserving the right to come in and add additional colors through shading at a later stage, because I very often do that. I'll use some colors elsewhere on the miniature and then I can tie them in by doing that. I think the black covered pretty well. Checking for spots that I missed. Actually, I think the inside of the ears on the ones I was looking at, the inside of their ears looks pretty dark, actually. So that, but I want to make the outside part of the ears a little bit lighter to help. Well, partly because they're like that, but also to draw attention to the face. So I will just goof around with the sword again while that is drying. Yeah, it's unfortunate you can't see my palette. There's really, the only thing I've done is mix an intermediary between these two colors for the non-metallic metal. When I paint like fancy non-metallic metal for Ron on the store, well, so this is what I would do. So I'd have something like this, maybe. I'm going to give away all my secrets now. So be prepared, it's happening. And now what I do is just spend like a ridiculous amount of time fixing the edges until they look good. I may also move some stuff around if I didn't get it exactly where I wanted it. There's a little place there where I think I must have, I don't know if you can see it if I zoom in more. There's a place where I think I had slightly tacky paint and then I applied the brush to it and I lifted up paint instead of putting down paint, which is the danger with that. So that's like a little hole that I have to fill, both the color but also just literally filling up the paint, because it's microscopic almost, but that edge can continue to show and ruin a blend, which is one reason I do take time to do a lot of prep on miniatures that I am painting for display purposes more than gaming purposes. So for every day, well, to make my life easier, I ended up doing, I think it's an 11-step mix from black to white, and I just mixed up so I made a bottle of this, say, if I need. So I have an 11-point thing from black to white, so I can sit and fuss neutral gray metallic to my heart's content when I'm painting for display projects. That needs a bit of water. So this paint is one of the highlight colors. It has a lot of white in it, and it's just a little bit thick, so that one I am thinning. But this is where, so I told you I have like 11 or 12, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's 11. An 11 point thing from black to white. This is where Anne and my technique will differ more, I think. I tend to use the thicker paint. More opaque. I tend to use more opaque paint. And a lot of steps. And Anne uses fewer steps and thins her paint more. But when I first started trying to make nice blends and everything, I was doing both. So I was using a lot of steps and I was thinning the paint. So both of those are things that help with blending. I know you're like, what is this show 10 or something? And you're like, finally she talks about blending. That's like my whole thing. But I can't give all my secrets away, right? There is a different method that I do with non-metallic metal sometimes that I should show you guys sometime. But for whatever reason, I chose not to do it on this. I want to go just a little darker down here at the bottom. And then so the things that control a blend are the transparency of the paint, so thinning it down if necessary, the steps, how close the steps are, and then the rest of it is brush stuff. So I got a long way faking it with the dilution and steps. And it was only, well into my painting career that I started to get better with the brush stuff. So that one was partly a brush stuff. I was painting a dark color. I was pulling it towards where I wanted it darkest. Then I did still have to fiddle the edge a little, but it wasn't too bad. But yes, if you're wondering whether I've spent hours doing this, I have spent hours doing this. So if you guys don't want to paint like that, by no means do you have to paint like that. I just figured that at this point, you might be interested in how I do what I do. And I've kind of missed part of, I haven't gone all the way to the edge on this, which is not going to be as scary to fix as it might seem. I often draw a line down the edge anyway. Well, by edge, I mean the place where the two planes meet. This is not the kind of edge that you could pull off with your brush. Like this one, I can do this edge really easy because I can just put my brush perpendicular to it and pull the paint off. So I'll even give you an example of this, although I might go back and change this later. I usually don't do this to the end because it gets covered up anyway. But I'm using the side of my brush and, well, let's go full white because I don't know if that showed much. I'm letting that edge on the sword pull the paint off. Which is another reason I'll do prep. On metal swords, I will file it down until that edge is nice and sharp. But this edge where these planes meet, so that edge was like a sharp edge. This edge is not. Like there's no way to get the brush to do the work for me. So if I really wanted to draw a line along this edge, I have to use the tip of the brush and control my breathing and do all that kind of fun stuff. And then make mistakes and fix them. So I probably won't do that. But I have been known to do that. Take the light color and draw along the whole edge there. The fur is still wet. Let's go over here for a minute. So the smaller the area is for non-metallic metal, the easiest it is to paint. So I would start with like figures that have accessories if I were doing this technique. So not a big sword, not big armor, but smaller thing like maybe this hook and the buckles and stuff like that. Necklaces, earrings. Because the smaller the object is, the less good the blending has to be. The people aren't going to be able to see the transitions as much. And also those smaller areas are ones that benefit most from non-metallic metal because you get that control over where is the reflection going to show up. So they tend to look better from being able to distinguish what the thing is and what's going on point of view. And that's going to get just a little bit of white when it's drier. So that from this angle it will still look kind of cool because it'll have that reflection. As if the sun were hitting it there. And there's stuff about how light actually behaves with metal, and I've learned some of that since I started doing this, but you may notice I'm not talking about that a lot, and that's less I'm not sharing secrets and more I don't always pay attention to that. I'm trying to pay more attention to that, but I think the make it look cool factor on non-metallic metal is actually more important than the make it super amazingly accurate factor. And this one, so I'm doing this plane, and I want the brush to pull the paint off, so I have to decide whether that's going to work better in what angle. I'm not going to go down to pure white here. I want it to contrast with that, but I want this to be kind of the focus point. I'm also not going to go to pure black up there because that is, why would it have a super deep shadow up there? And by no means is this the only approach to non-metallic metal. I don't do it. I tend to do this where I can, but you can choose like the darkest part is in the middle, and then it goes to lighter. That kind of alternates bands of light and dark. If you look at metal reflections, that happens a lot. Contingent Remainder says, with the hook hound rounded and at a 45-degree angle, how would you make the NMM look cool and match the sword for light as well? Hold on. Well, this I think, because that's sloping up and that's sloping down. I mean, technically sometimes things that face downwards get a lesser reflection. There are times I would do that. That part is too small. I wouldn't do that. If he was holding the sword downwards at like an angle, let me see if... Nope, I don't have anyone who's doing it on my desk. If he's holding the sword downwards like this, I would pay some attention to the face that's facing down. I would try to be placing the lighter parts where it would make sense that it's light coming back from the ground. Here, I would probably emphasize the curve. So probably I'd put the brightest light there. I could put it right on the tip, but I think it'd be more interesting to put it there, then fade out to darker next to the handle, the base of the hook, and then a little darker there. And then it'd be darker here, but it might follow a similar pattern where it's a little lighter in the middle because of that reflecting off the ground. But as long as I'm getting places where light is right next to dark, it's going to read shiny to people's eyes. Like that is why you think that's shiny. Because if I put that, so I haven't done any shadows on this side. I'll just put light here. Like it was on the other side. Don't stress the blending too much at this point. That, I mean, I haven't put the white on there yet, but that doesn't look as shiny to you. And it doesn't look as shiny to you because it doesn't have both parts of the equation. So to me, it's more important to be able to do that than to do exactly what light actually does. If I can make it realistic, I want to do that. But it's more important because, I mean, the band style reflects, there's always things that are reflecting in shiny metal. So that mimics what's happening in real life. And if you have a big surface and you need to make it, like if this was a really big sword, I might want to do, or really long sword, I might want to do that technique just to make it more interesting. This one is about the perfect size to do my approach, I think, where I have... oh, thank you. I had no idea, Quinty. That one was about the perfect approach to do the way I like to do non-metallic metals a lot. So as Quinty has pointed out, it is 5:10. So I will keep this guy and work. I mean, obviously I'm going to keep him, but I will keep him aside and not do much with him, and then come and work on him more next week. I hope you enjoyed getting the peek into the boxes. This is one of the things in the box. I didn't use the one from this year's box. I used the one from RV box, I think. So because I'm a little bit late, I'm not going to go through all the shows. You probably know there's stuff every day, except Saturday and Sunday. I think Painting Platinum is on hiatus until something. They're figuring out where to move to and when to move to, I think. But Anne's on every day at 11:30, and there's kind of hobby stuff Monday to Thursday afternoons, and then on Friday the afternoon show is the community one, Reaperland, and then of course I'm sure you all know about Reaper Live on Thursday nights, because that's where you can win cool free things. And this is not a Reaper Errant weekend, so I won't tell you about that. So thank you all for coming. I hope you had fun, and hopefully I'll see you next week. So I bet Queenie's going to get a raid set up for us, and she's shared the link she shared in chat. If you've come late, is where did I put it? Is to a charity auction, and it includes some miniatures painted by myself and other people who paint and teach at ReaperCon. Well, paint for Reaper and teach at ReaperCon. And you buy raffle tickets, and they support these charities. So if you're interested, this is a very rare opportunity. Very few private individuals have miniatures of mine, so it's a very rare opportunity to get one. It's probably like a half dozen people at most, between gifts and a few private commissions that I've done. But I mostly just paint for Reaper and Darksword, and there was another company that I painted for in England, but the guy who ran that's retired. So go support some charity. Go come to ReaperCon. Get ready to come to ReaperCon. And I don't see a raid thing yet. I bet Quinty's looking for something cool. I saw that we had some raiders. Thank you, raiders. Unfortunately, it is the end of the stream, but I'm sure that Queenie is going to find some cool place for everyone to go. There it is. We're going to raid Ken Freakwed. And I'll see you next week. Just giving it a second to switch over to the raid. Nope. Okay. I don't know. I don't think we're there. There we go.